My mother-in-law smiled at me across the dinner table and said the words that would change everything. Daniel deserves better than you. She said it so sweetly, like she was commenting on the weather. My husband sat right there, fork halfway to his mouth, and said nothing. That silence broke something in me I didn't know could break. What she didn't know was that I'd been recording every cruel word for 6 months. And I was about to make her son choose between us. Spoiler alert, he chose me. And she lost everything. Before I tell you how I took down the most manipulative woman I've ever met, hit that like button if you've ever dealt with a toxic mother-in-law who made your life miserable. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications bell so you don't miss out on any of my revenge stories. This story has twists you won't see coming. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching this story from. Have you ever had to fight for your marriage against your own family? My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I'm 32 years old. I married Daniel Mitchell 3 years ago in a small ceremony in Portland, Oregon. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. And it was, until his mother, Patricia Mitchell, stood up during the reception and gave a toast that made my stomach turn. She smiled at the guests, raised her champagne glass, and said, "I hope my son knows what he's doing." Then she looked directly at me and added, "Some women marry for love. Others marry for convenience." The room went silent. I felt 200 pairs of eyes on me. Daniel laughed it off, squeezing my hand under the table. "Mom's just kidding," he whispered. But I saw her face. She wasn't kidding. That was the moment I realized Patricia Mitchell didn't just dislike me. She hated me. And she was going to make sure I knew it. Let me back up and tell you how we got there. I met Daniel 4 years ago at a coffee shop in downtown Portland. I was working as a junior accountant at a small firm, barely making enough to cover rent on my tiny studio apartment. Daniel was a software engineer at a tech startup, confident and kind, with this easy smile that made me feel safe. We hit it off immediately. Within 6 months, we were inseparable. He was everything I'd hoped for, supportive, funny, and completely in love with me. But then I met his mother. Patricia Mitchell was 60 years old, a retired real estate agent who lived in a sprawling house in the suburbs. She had money, not millions, but enough to make sure everyone knew she was comfortable. Her house was decorated like a magazine spread, all white furniture and abstract art. Everything had its place, including, I would soon learn, her son. The first time Daniel brought me to meet her, she looked me up and down like I was a stain on her carpet. I was wearing my best dress, a simple navy blue sheath I'd bought on sale. My hair was pulled back in a neat bun. I'd even put on makeup, which I rarely did. I wanted to make a good impression. I smiled and extended my hand. "Mrs. Mitchell, it's so nice to finally meet you." She stared at my hand for a long, uncomfortable moment before shaking it limply. "Sarah," she said, my name sounding like an accusation. "Daniel's told me about you." Her tone made it clear that whatever he'd said hadn't impressed her. Dinner was torture. She asked where I grew up. I told her I was from a small town in Idaho, that my parents owned a hardware store. She wrinkled her nose. "How quaint." She asked what I did for a living. When I said I was an accountant, she nodded slowly. "Well, I suppose someone has to do the paperwork." Daniel tried to steer the conversation, talking about his work, our plans for the future. But Patricia kept circling back to me, picking apart every answer I gave. When we left that night, I was shaking. Daniel noticed. "She'll warm up to you," he promised. "She's just protective." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But deep down, I knew Patricia Mitchell had already decided I wasn't good enough for her son. And she was going to do everything in her power to prove it. The attack started small. She called Daniel multiple times a day, always when we were together. She'd invite him to family dinners and forget to invite me. When he'd ask if I could come, she'd sigh dramatically. "I suppose," she'd say, like my presence was a burden. At those dinners, she'd serve everyone else first, leaving me for last. She'd compliment Daniel's sister, Melissa, on her hair, her clothes, her job. She'd ignore me completely, unless it was to make a cutting remark. Once, I brought a homemade pie to one of her dinners. I'd spent hours on it, perfecting the crust, making sure the filling was just right. Patricia took one look at it and said, "How thoughtful. Store-bought is always easier, though." I watched her set it aside, without even tasting it. Later, I saw her throw it in the trash. Daniel noticed some of it, but he always had an excuse. "She's just set in her ways," he'd say. Or, "She doesn't mean it like that." I started to feel crazy, like I was imagining hostility. But I wasn't. Every time I saw Patricia, she found a new way to cut me down. Then we got engaged. Daniel proposed on a hiking trip, just the two of us, and I said yes without hesitation. I loved him. I wanted to spend my life with him. But when he told his mother, her reaction was ice cold. She didn't congratulate us. She didn't smile. She just said, "Are you sure about this, Daniel?" Right in front of me. Planning the wedding was a nightmare. Patricia inserted herself into every decision. She hated my dress. She hated the venue. She hated the flowers. She even tried to uninvite some of my family members, claiming we were over budget. Daniel tried to mediate, but Patricia was relentless. She'd cry, she'd guilt-trip him, she'd remind him of everything she'd done for him. And slowly, I watched him give in. First the flowers, then the venue, then the guest list. By the time our wedding day arrived, I felt like I was marrying into Patricia's vision, not my own. And that toast at the reception? That was her final stamp of ownership. She wanted everyone to know that I was an outsider, that I didn't belong. After the wedding, things got worse. Patricia started showing up at our apartment unannounced. She'd let herself in with a key Daniel had given her for emergencies. I'd come home from work to find her rearranging our furniture or criticizing how I kept the house. "Daniel deserves a clean home," she'd say, running her finger along a shelf. Once, I found her going through our bedroom closet. When I asked what she was doing, she said, "Just making sure you're taking care of my son." I tried talking to Daniel. I told him how uncomfortable his mother made me feel. He'd sigh and say, "She's just trying to help." When I asked him to take back the key, he hesitated. "She's my mom, Sarah. I can't just cut her off." That phrase became his mantra. "She's my mom." Like that explained everything. Like that justified everything. I started dreading weekends because that's when Patricia would plan family dinners or outings. And every single time, she'd find a way to humiliate me. She'd tell stories about Daniel's ex-girlfriends, women she approved of. She'd compare me to Melissa's husband, a lawyer, always making it clear that I didn't measure up. Once, she asked me in front of the whole family if I was planning to trap Daniel with a baby soon. I was so stunned I couldn't even respond. The worst part was watching Daniel let it happen. He'd laugh nervously or change the subject, but he never defended me. Not once. I started to feel invisible in my own marriage. Like I was just a placeholder until Patricia found someone better for her son. Then came the incident that broke me. We'd been married for about a year when Patricia called Daniel, sobbing. She said she'd fallen and hurt her ankle. Daniel rushed over immediately, and I went with him. When we got there, Patricia was sitting on her couch, perfectly fine. No injury. No tears. She just smiled and said, "Oh, I must have overreacted. But since you're here, why don't you stay for dinner?" I realized then that she'd faked the whole thing just to get Daniel's attention. And it worked. We stayed. We always stayed. That night, as we drove home, I tried to bring it up. "Daniel, your mom lied to get us over there." He shook his head. "She was scared, Sarah. You're being paranoid." Paranoid. That word echoed in my head for days. I wasn't paranoid. I was drowning. Patricia was systematically eroding my marriage, and Daniel couldn't see it. Or worse, he didn't want to see it. That's when I made a decision. I wasn't going to keep suffering in silence. I wasn't going to let Patricia destroy what Daniel and I had built. If Daniel wouldn't stand up to his mother, I would have to do it myself. But I needed proof. I needed something concrete, something undeniable, to show him who his mother really was. So I started recording everything. The first time I hit a record on my phone, my hands were shaking. It felt wrong, like I was betraying some unspoken rule. But I was desperate. Patricia had just called me Daniel's little mistake during a phone conversation I'd overheard, and when I told Daniel about it later, he said I must have misheard. I hadn't. I knew exactly what she'd said. So I decided if he wouldn't believe my words, maybe he'd believe hers. I started small. I'd leave my phone on the counter during Patricia's surprise visits, the voice recorder running in the background. At first, she was almost careful, keeping her comments just vague enough that Daniel could explain them away. But the more comfortable she got, the more her mask slipped. One afternoon, about 2 months into my recording project, Patricia showed up while I was doing laundry. She walked right in, didn't knock, and found me folding clothes in the living room. "Still doing laundry in the middle of the day?" she asked, her voice dripping with judgment. "I suppose some women don't have real jobs to worry about." I bit my tongue. My phone was on the coffee table, recording. "I work full-time, Patricia," I said calmly. "I'm doing laundry on my lunch break." She laughed, a cold, brittle sound.
"Oh, Sarah.
You're so sensitive. I'm just saying that when I was your age, I managed a household and a career without complaining." She picked up one of Daniel's shirts, inspecting it like I'd done something wrong. You know, Daniel used to have standards. I wonder what changed. I felt my face flush, but I didn't respond. I couldn't. If I lost my temper, she'd twist it, make me look like the crazy one. So I just kept folding, keeping my movement steady even though my heart was pounding. She stayed for another 20 minutes, criticizing everything from the way I'd organized the pantry to the color of the throw pillows on the couch. When she finally left, I grabbed my phone and saved the recording immediately. That night, I listened to it 3 times. Her voice, so sweet and condescending, saying things that were designed to cut me down. I wanted to show Daniel right then and there. But I knew one recording wouldn't be enough. He'd find a way to excuse it. So I kept going. Over the next few months, I collected hours of audio. Patricia insulting my cooking. Patricia told Daniel he'd settled for me. Patricia suggested that I was lazy, manipulative, gold-digging. She never said these things when Daniel was in the room.
She was too smart for that.
But the moment he stepped away, the gloves came off. The recordings were damning, but they were also exhausting. Every time I pressed play, I relived the humiliation. I'd lie in bed at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was doing the right thing. Was I being petty? Was I overreacting? But then Patricia would show up again, and the cycle would repeat. She'd say something cruel. I'd record it, and I'd add it to my growing collection. Daniel started noticing that I was quieter around his mother. "Are you okay?" he'd ask. I'd nod and smile, pretending everything was fine. I couldn't tell him what I was doing.
Not yet.
If he knew I was recording his mother, he'd be furious. He'd accuse me of being manipulative, of trying to turn him against her. So I stayed silent, biding my time. But Patricia wasn't done. She started escalating. She began calling Daniel at work, telling him I wasn't answering her calls. Which was true. I'd stopped picking up because every conversation with her left me feeling like garbage. Daniel would come home frustrated. "Why can't you just talk to her?" he'd ask. "She's trying, Sarah." I wanted to scream. She wasn't trying. She was sabotaging. But instead, I'd apologize and promise to do better. It was easier than fighting. Easier than watching Daniel choose her over me, which he did every single time. Then came the dinner party. Patricia decided to host a family gathering to celebrate Daniel's promotion at work. She invited his sister Melissa, Melissa's husband Greg, and a few of Daniel's cousins. I wasn't involved in the planning. I didn't even know about it until Daniel told me the night before. "Mom's throwing me a party," he said, excited. "Tomorrow at 6. I forced a smile. That's great. Inside, I was dreading it. The party was exactly as bad as I expected. Patricia had gone all out, catering, decorations, and the works. She greeted Daniel with a huge hug and completely ignored me. I stood there, invisible, while she ushered everyone inside. Melissa gave me a tight smile. She'd always been polite but distant, clearly taking her mother's side without saying it outright. Dinner was torture. Patricia seated me at the far end of the table, as far from Daniel as possible. She spent the entire meal gushing about Daniel's accomplishments, then turned her attention to Melissa and Greg. Melissa's firm just promoted her to senior associate, Patricia announced proudly. And Greg closed another major case last month. I'm so blessed to have such successful children. I sat there, pushing food around my plate, feeling smaller and smaller. No one asked about my work. No one asked how I was doing. I was a ghost. Then Patricia stood up, glass in hand, and started a toast. To Daniel, she said, beaming. My brilliant, hardworking son who's achieved so much. I'm so proud of the man you've become. Everyone clapped. Daniel smiled, embarrassed but pleased. Then Patricia's eyes slid to me, and her expression changed. I just hope you remember where you came from, Daniel. And who's always been there for you. The implication was clear. I wasn't the one who'd been there. I was an outsider. The interloper. I excused myself and went to the bathroom, locking the door behind me. I stared at my reflection in the mirror, my hands gripping the sink. I looked tired and defeated. I pulled out my phone and checked the recording app. It was still running, capturing everything.
Good.
When I came back, the conversation had shifted. Patricia was talking about Daniel's childhood, telling stories that painted her as the perfect mother. I sat back down and stayed silent for the rest of the evening. As we drove home, Daniel was in a great mood. That was nice, he said. Mom really went all out. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. When we got home, I went straight to bed. Daniel stayed up watching TV. I lay there in the dark, replaying the night in my head. Patricia's smug face. Daniel's obliviousness. The way everyone acted like I didn't matter. That's when I knew I couldn't keep waiting. I had enough recordings. I had enough evidence. But I needed one more thing. I needed Patricia to go too far. I needed her to say something so cruel, so undeniable, that Daniel would have no choice but to see the truth. And then 2 weeks later she did. It happened on a Sunday afternoon. Daniel had gone to the hardware store to pick up supplies for a project he was working on. I was alone in the apartment, folding laundry and trying to enjoy the rare moment of peace. Then I heard the key turn in the lock. My stomach dropped. Patricia. She walked in, not bothering to call out a greeting. She found me in the living room and smiled, but it wasn't friendly. It was the smile of someone who knew they had the upper hand. Hello, Sarah, she said, setting her purse down on the counter. I hope I'm not interrupting. I forced a smile. Daniel's not here. He went to the store. I know, she said. I saw his car leave. I wanted to talk to you alone. My heart started racing. I casually reached for my phone, which was on the couch next to me, and tapped the record button without looking. I set it screen side down, the microphone facing her. What about? I asked, keeping my voice steady. Patricia sat down across from me, crossing her legs elegantly. I think it's time we had an honest conversation, she said. You and I both know this marriage isn't working. I blinked. Excuse me? Oh, come on, Sarah, she said, her voice hardening. You're not happy. Daniel's not happy. You're dragging him down. He used to be so ambitious, so full of life. Now he's stuck in this mediocre little existence because of you. I felt like I'd been slapped. That's not true. Isn't it? She leaned forward, her eyes cold. You're not good enough for him, Sarah. You never were. I tried to give you a chance, I really did. But you're just not the kind of woman Daniel needs.
You're ordinary.
Boring, and frankly, I don't know what he sees in you. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms. Why are you saying this? Because someone needs to, she snapped. Daniel won't leave you on his own. He's too kind, too loyal. But if you really loved him, you'd do the right thing. You'd let him go. I stared at her, my mind reeling. You want me to leave him? I want you to stop ruining his life, she said bluntly. You're holding him back, Sarah. He could have so much more. A better partner. A better future. But instead, he's stuck with you. The words hung in the air, venomous and final. I felt tears prick my eyes, but I refused to cry in front of her. Instead, I took a deep breath and said, Does Daniel know you feel this way? She laughed. Daniel thinks I'm being protective. He doesn't see what I see. But he will. Eventually he'll realize I was right. And when he does, you'll be gone. One way or another. I couldn't speak. I just sat there, frozen, as Patricia stood up and smoothed her skirt. Think about what I said, she told me. You're not a bad person, Sarah. You're just the wrong person. For Daniel's sake, do the right thing. She left as casually as she'd arrived, closing the door behind her like she'd just stopped by for tea. I sat there for a long time, staring at the spot where she'd been. Then I grabbed my phone and stopped the recording. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold it. I listened to the audio 3 times, making sure it had captured everything. It had. Every word. Every cruel, calculated sentence. This was it. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. But I didn't feel triumphant. I felt hollow. Because deep down, I knew that playing this for Daniel would force him to make a choice. Me or his mother. And I wasn't sure which way he'd go. I spent the next few days in a fog. Daniel noticed something was off, but when he asked, I told him I was just tired. I couldn't tell him yet. I needed to plan this perfectly. If I approached it wrong, Patricia would twist it. She'd make me look like the villain. So I waited. I called my best friend, Monica, and told her everything. She'd been my rock through all of this, the only person who truly understood what I was going through. You have to play that recording for him, she said. He needs to hear it. I know, I said. But what if he doesn't believe me? What if he thinks I edited it or took it out of context? Then he's not the man you think he is, Monica said gently. Sarah, you deserve better than this. If Daniel can't see what his mother is doing, then maybe this marriage isn't worth saving. Her words hit hard, but she was right. I couldn't keep living like this. I couldn't keep being the punching bag for Patricia's cruelty while Daniel played Switzerland. I decided to do it on a Friday night. Daniel didn't have to work the next day, so we'd have time to talk. I made his favorite dinner, set the table, and tried to act normal. We ate and chatted about our days, and for a moment, it felt like old times. Like we were just a couple in love, without the shadow of Patricia looming over us. After dinner, I poured us both a glass of wine and sat down on the couch. Daniel, I said, my voice shaking slightly. I need to talk to you about something. He looked up, concerned. What's wrong? I pulled out my phone and took a deep breath. I need you to listen to something. And I need you to listen to the whole thing before you say anything.
Can you do that?
He frowned but nodded. Okay. I pressed play. Patricia's voice filled the room, cold and cutting. You're not good enough for him, Sarah. You never were. I watched Daniel's face as the recording played. His frown deepened. His jaw tightened. When Patricia said, if you really loved him, you'd let him go, Daniel's eyes went wide. The recording ended. Daniel stared at the phone, then at me. When was this? Last Sunday, I said quietly. While you were at the store. She came over to tell me I should leave you. He ran a hand through his hair, his expression unreadable. This doesn't sound like her. My heart sank. Daniel, you just heard it. That's her voice. I know, but he shook his head. She wouldn't say those things.
Not like that.
Maybe you misunderstood. Maybe she was trying to. Trying to do what? I interrupted, my voice rising. Trying to help? Daniel, she told me I'm ruining your life. She told me to leave you. How is that anything other than what it is? He stood up, pacing. I don't know, Sarah. This is a lot. She's my mother. She's always been there for me. And I'm your wife, I said, my voice breaking. I've been there for you too. But you never defend me. You never stand up to her. Do you have any idea how that feels? He stopped pacing and looked at me, guilt flickering across his face. I didn't realize it was this bad. It's worse, I said. I pulled up my recordings folder and showed him the screen. I have hours of this, Daniel. Months of her saying things like this when you're not around. I didn't want to believe it either. But she's been tearing me down since the day we met. And you let her. He looked at the screen, at the dozens of files, and his face went pale. You've been recording her? Because you wouldn't listen, I said, tears streaming down my face now. Every time I tried to tell you, you made excuses. You said I was being sensitive. You said she didn't mean it. But she did. And now you have proof. Daniel sat back down, his head in his hands. We sat there in silence for what felt like forever. Finally, he looked up at me, his eyes red. What do you want me to do? I took a shaky breath. I want you to choose. Me or her. Because I can't keep doing this, Daniel. I can't keep being the bad guy in your mother's story. If you can't stand up to her, if you can't put our marriage first, then I don't think we have a future. His face crumpled. Sarah, don't say that. I mean it, I said. I love you, but I can't lose myself trying to win her approval. So you need to decide. Do you want this marriage? Or do you want to keep letting her control your life? He didn't answer right away. And in that silence, I felt my heart break just a little more. Daniel didn't sleep that night. Neither did I. We lay in bed, side by side, not touching, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on us. I kept replaying Patricia's words in my head. You're not good enough for him. And I kept wondering if Daniel secretly agreed with her. The next morning, Daniel got up early. He made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and stared at his phone for a long time. I watched him from the bedroom doorway, not sure what to say. Finally, he looked up at me. I'm going to talk to her, he said. My stomach twisted. What are you going to say? I don't know yet, he admitted. But I need to hear her side of this. I felt a flash of anger. Her side? Daniel, you heard the recording. What other side is there? She's my mother, Sarah, he said, his voice strained. I can't just cut her off based on one conversation. It's not one conversation, I snapped. It's years of this. But fine. Go talk to her. Just know that if you don't set boundaries this time, I'm done. He flinched but nodded. He left an hour later. I spent the day pacing the apartment, my phone in my hand, waiting for an update. Hours passed. Finally, around 4 in the afternoon, Daniel came home. His face was drawn, his eyes tired. He sat down heavily on the couch and said, She denied it. I stared at him. What? She said the recording was taken out of context, he explained. That you've been twisting her words to make her look bad. She said she was just trying to have an honest conversation with you about the struggles in our marriage. I felt like I'd been punched. And you believe her? I don't know what to believe, he said, his voice cracking. She was crying, Sarah. She said you've been turning me against her. She said she's trying to protect me. I laughed bitterly. Of course she did. That's what she does, Daniel. She manipulates. She plays the victim. And you fall for it every single time. She's my mother, he shouted, standing up. What do you want me to do? Just abandon her, because you don't like her? I want you to choose your wife. I shouted back. I want you to see what she's doing to us. But you can't, can you? Because no matter what she says, no matter how much she hurts me, you'll always take her side. We stood there, staring at each other, the chasm between us wider than ever. Finally, Daniel said quietly, I need time to think. Fine, I said, my voice cold. Take all the time you need, but I'm not waiting forever. He left again, this time to stay with a friend. I spent the next 3 days alone, replaying every moment of our relationship. I thought about the man I'd fallen in love with, the one who used to make me laugh, who used to make me feel like I mattered. And I wondered where that man had gone. On the 3rd day, Daniel came back. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept at all. I talked to Melissa, he said. I played her the recording. I felt a flicker of hope. What did she say? She said it sounded bad, he admitted. But she also said Mom's been under a lot of stress lately. She thinks maybe Mom didn't mean it the way it came across. The hope died. So Melissa's defending her too. She's not defending her, Daniel said. She's just trying to be fair. Fair. I repeated, my voice hollow. Daniel, your mother told me to leave you. She said I'm ruining your life. How is that fair? He didn't answer. He just stood there looking lost. And in that moment, I realized something. Daniel was never going to choose me.
Not really.
Because choosing me meant standing up to Patricia, and he didn't have it in him. He'd been conditioned his whole life to put her first, and I couldn't compete with that. "I'm leaving," I said quietly. His head snapped up. "What?" "I'm leaving," I repeated. "I can't do this anymore, Daniel. I've tried. I've given you every chance to prove that our marriage matters. But it doesn't.
Not to you.
Not enough." "Sarah, no," he said, his voice panicked.
Please don't do this.
"I love you." "Do you?" I asked, tears streaming down my face. "Because it doesn't feel like it. It feels like you love the idea of me. But when it comes down to it, you'll always choose her." He tried to argue, tried to convince me to stay. But I'd already made up my mind. I packed a bag that night and went to Monica's place. She didn't ask questions, just hugged me and let me cry. Over the next few weeks, I moved into my own apartment. I hired a lawyer and started divorce proceedings. Daniel called constantly, leaving voicemails begging me to come back. But I couldn't. I'd spent 3 years of my life trying to make Patricia accept me, trying to make Daniel see what she was doing. And I was done. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. Daniel signed the papers, without contesting anything. I heard through mutual friends that Patricia was thrilled. She'd gotten what she wanted. Me out of Daniel's life. But here's the thing. About a year after the divorce, I ran into Melissa at a coffee shop. We hadn't spoken since everything fell apart. She looked uncomfortable when she saw me, but she came over anyway. "Sarah," she said hesitantly, "can we talk?" I wasn't sure I wanted to, but I nodded. We sat down and she said, "I owe you an apology. After you left, Daniel fell apart. He started drinking, stopped taking care of himself. Mom kept saying it was for the best, but I started noticing things." "What things?" I asked. "The way she talked about you," Melissa said. "The way she talked about Daniel's other girlfriends before you. She did the same thing to all of them. She drove them away. And I realized she was doing it because she didn't want to share with him. She wanted him all to herself." I felt a strange sense of vindication. "Did you tell Daniel?" She nodded. "I did. And I played him some of your recordings. The ones you sent me after the divorce." I'd sent Melissa a few of the recordings, hoping she'd see the truth. He finally listened. He finally saw what she'd been doing. "And," I prompted. "He cut her off," Melissa said. "About 6 months ago. He told her she wasn't welcome in his life anymore unless she got help. She refused. So he stopped talking to her." I didn't know what to say. Part of me felt sorry for Daniel, but another part of me felt nothing. He'd made his choice too late. "He asks about you," Melissa added. "He wants to know if you're okay." "I'm fine," I said. And I meant it. I'd rebuilt my life. I had a new job, new friends, a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. "Tell him I hope he's doing well. But I've moved on." Melissa nodded, her eyes sad. "I'm sorry it ended the way it did." "Me too," I said. And I was. Not because I missed Daniel, but because I wished he'd seen the truth sooner. Before Patricia destroyed us both. As for Patricia, I heard she's alone now. Melissa doesn't talk to her much either. She pushed everyone away in her quest to control her son. And now she has no one. I don't feel bad for her. I feel free. Looking back, I realized that standing up to Patricia wasn't just about saving my marriage. It was about saving myself. For years, I let her make me feel small, worthless, like I didn't deserve love. And I stayed silent because I didn't want to cause problems. But silence didn't protect me. It only made things worse. Recording Patricia's words wasn't about revenge. It was about validation. I needed proof that I wasn't crazy, that the cruelty I was experiencing was real. And when I finally had that proof, it gave me the courage to demand better. Daniel's choice, or lack of one, taught me something important. You can't make someone choose you.
And you shouldn't have to.
A partner who truly loves you will stand up for you, even when it's hard. Even when it means confronting the people they love most. I don't regret the time I spent trying to make my marriage work. But I also don't regret walking away when it became clear that Daniel couldn't be the partner I needed. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let go. To anyone listening who's dealing with a toxic mother-in-law or a partner who won't stand up for you, know this. You deserve better. You deserve to be loved without conditions. You deserve to be defended. And if the person you're with can't give you that, it's okay to walk away. It's not giving up. It's choosing yourself. The hardest part of leaving wasn't the divorce itself. It was accepting that the man I'd loved couldn't be the man I needed him to be. I'd spent so much time hoping Daniel would change, hoping he'd wake up one day and finally see his mother for who she really was. But hope isn't enough to sustain a marriage. Action is. And Daniel's actions, or his lack of them, told me everything I needed to know. In the months after the divorce, I went to therapy. I needed to understand why I'd stayed as long as I did, why I tolerated Patricia's abuse for years before finally standing up for myself. My therapist helped me see that I'd been conditioned to believe that being a good wife meant suffering in silence. That love meant sacrifice, even when the sacrifice was my own happiness and dignity. But real love doesn't ask you to diminish yourself. Real love doesn't require you to accept cruelty from the people who are supposed to care about you. Real love protects you. And Daniel's love, as much as he claimed it existed, never protected me from his mother. I learned something else too. Patricia didn't hate me because of anything I did or didn't do. She hated me because I existed. Because I represented a threat to her control over Daniel. It didn't matter if I was kind or accomplished or perfect. She would have found a reason to reject me regardless. Because the problem was never me. It was her. That realization was freeing. For years, I tried to win her approval, thinking that if I just tried hard enough, worked hard enough, smiled through enough insults, she'd eventually accept me. But you can't win a game where the rules are designed to make you lose. Patricia never intended to accept me. She intended to destroy me. And she almost succeeded. But here's what she didn't count on. I'm stronger than she thought. Walking away from Daniel, from that marriage, from the constant battle for basic respect, it didn't break me. It made me realize my own worth.
I didn't need Daniel's family to validate me.
I didn't need Patricia's approval. I only needed my own. Today, I'm remarried. His name is Marcus, and he's nothing like Daniel. When I told him about Patricia, about everything I'd been through, his response was immediate and clear. That will never happen with my family, he said. And if it does, I'll shut it down immediately. You're my priority. Always. And he's proven it. When his mother made a comment about my career once, something vaguely dismissive, Marcus stopped her mid-sentence. Mom, that's not okay, he said firmly. Sarah's career is important, and I won't have anyone, including you, belittling it. His mother apologized immediately. And she never made another comment like that again. That's what partnership looks like. That's what love looks like. Someone who doesn't wait for you to be broken before they defend you. Someone who sets boundaries before you have to beg for them.
I think about Daniel sometimes.
According to Melissa, he's doing better now. He's in therapy too, working through the codependency he had with Patricia. He's dating someone new, and from what I hear, he's actually standing up to his mother this time. Setting boundaries. Protecting his relationship. Part of me is glad he finally figured it out. But another part of me is sad that it took losing me for him to learn that lesson. I wonder if he ever thinks about the recordings, about all those moments when he chose to believe his mother over me. I wonder if he regrets it. But mostly, I don't wonder about Daniel at all anymore. Because I've built a life that doesn't include him or the pain he allowed into our marriage. I have a partner who respects me, friends who support me, a career I'm proud of, and most importantly, I have my self-respect back. As for Patricia, karma has a way of working itself out. Last I heard, she's lonely. Melissa visits her occasionally out of obligation, but their relationship is strained. Daniel doesn't speak to her at all. She spent so many years trying to control her children, manipulating them, driving away anyone who threatened her influence. And now she's alone with the consequences of her actions. I don't take pleasure in her loneliness. But I don't feel sorry for her either. She made her choices. She chose cruelty over kindness. She chose control over connection. And now she's living with the result. The recordings I made, those hours of audio that documented Patricia's abuse, I kept them for a while after the divorce. Not because I wanted to relive the pain, but because they were proof. Proof that I wasn't crazy. Proof that the gaslighting I experienced was real. But eventually I deleted them. I didn't need proof anymore. I knew my truth. And that was enough. If I could go back and talk to the version of myself who was standing in Patricia's house that first night, the one who shook her hand and tried so hard to make a good impression, I'd tell her this: you're enough exactly as you are. The right people will see that. And the wrong people? Their rejection says nothing about your worth. I'd tell her that the pain she's about to experience will be real and deep and sometimes unbearable. But it will also teach her things about herself that she needs to know. It will teach her how to stand up for herself. How to recognize love that uplifts versus love that diminishes. How to walk away from situations that are destroying her, even when walking away is the hardest thing she's ever done. And I tell her that on the other side of that pain, there's peace. There's joy. There's a life where she doesn't have to record conversations to prove she's being mistreated. Where she doesn't have to brace herself every time her phone rings. Where she doesn't have to wonder if her partner will choose her or someone else. That life exists. I'm living it now. My mother-in-law wanted me gone. She wanted to erase me from her son's life, to replace me with someone she deemed more suitable. And, in a way, she succeeded. I left. But not because she broke me. I left because I chose myself. I chose dignity over desperation. I chose freedom over fighting for scraps of respect.
And Daniel?
He had to make a choice too. It just took him too long to make the right one. By the time he finally stood up to Patricia, finally saw her for who she really was, I was already gone. I'd already rebuilt. And I wasn't coming back. Some people say I should have stayed. That I should have given him more time to figure it out. But I'd already given him 3 years. 3 years of trying. 3 years of hoping. 3 years of watching him choose his mother over our marriage. I don't regret leaving. I only regret not leaving sooner. To the people listening who are in similar situations, trapped between a partner and a toxic family member, I want you to hear this. Your peace matters. Your mental health matters. Your happiness matters. And if the person you're with can't protect those things, can't create space for you to feel safe and valued, then it's okay to leave. You're not being selfish. You're not being cruel. You're being human. And humans need love that feels like love, not like a constant battle. Patricia thought she won when I left Daniel. She thought she'd successfully driven away another woman who threatened her control. But she didn't win. She lost. She lost her son's respect. She lost her relationship with her daughter. And she lost the opportunity to be part of a family that could have included her, if only she'd chosen differently. I won. Not because I destroyed her, though I could have. I had hours of recordings that could have ruined her reputation. I could have shared them with everyone in Daniel's life, exposed her for the manipulator she was. But I didn't. Because my victory wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming myself. I won because I'm happy now. I won because I know my worth. I won because I refused to spend the rest of my life being small so someone else could feel big. And that's a victory Patricia can never take away from me. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment telling me about your own experience with toxic in-laws or the moment you chose yourself over a relationship that was hurting you. Subscribe for more stories about standing up, setting boundaries, and reclaiming your power. Remember, you deserve love that protects you, not love that requires you to protect yourself from the people who claim to care. I'll see you in the next one.